Jaws, directed by Steven Spielberg in 1975, and Psycho, directed by Alfred Hitchcock in 1960, are two classic thriller films from two acclaimed directors. Both heavily influenced the films of their time and the thriller genre as a whole. Jaws, being a blockbuster, had a larger budget and production. This film did especially well because of the amount of advertisement Hollywood put in for this movie and by word of mouth. Jaws was successfully the most popular movie for 2 months after it came out. At the time, the movie was so impressive that it scared people out of the water, similar to how Psycho made people afraid to take showers. Psycho, best remembered for by the famous shower scene in its music, was a low-budget movie mostly paid for by Hitchcock himself. During the time that Psycho was made, color was an option, although Hitchcock decided to create this movie in black and white. Hitchcock was the one to pay for production costs, therefore this was a very low-budget movie. Using black and white film helped the cost. Although he had a budget restraint, Hitchcock was able to take advantage of this in many ways. For example, the black and white film was able to make the horror scenes scarier, even scenes that took place during the daylight were harsh. It also makes the blood look more realistic. Without color, he was able to use something with a consistency closer to blood than actual fake blood. The black and white helps other colors not pop as much, so the environment seems more scary. Especially the shadows in the movie allowed for a terrifying atmosphere, adding to the scary effect. One example of this was being able to watch the shower scene in color and not be as on edge because the colors weren't as harsh and the scene was much lighter in color, taking away the effect of the darkness. The use of black and white in this film accentuates the different tones and moods throughout the film, helping convey the scariness of the film to the audience. Differently, Jaws was a blockbuster film with a larger budget. By 1975, colored film had become much cheaper and was more widely used. Outside of the water, this movie had very bright color scheme, creating a happier summer tone for the movie. However, when the camera goes under the water, there is a color shift and is used to show the viewer that the tone of the scene is changing to more alarming and potentially scarier. In the violent scenes where the shark is attacking people, color helps more vividly portray the blood and gore that is being shown on the screen, and overall creates a more scarier experience for the audience. Jaws and Psycho, while made in different time periods, include some of the same editing and film techniques to build tension. In both of the films, the length of the shots vary greatly throughout the movie. The editing speed is a large part of how each of the films build tension and then chaos. As movies in the thriller genre, the films use a common technique of changing the editing speed to emphasize action. In Jaws, the film will have longer, quieter shots that make the audience uncomfortable, then speed up the editing greatly when there is action to create a sense of chaos. In the scene where the shark kills the child on the beach, there are long shots beforehand when everything is normal, but as the shark approaches and kills the child, the time between cuts is greatly shortened to emphasize the panic of the beach's inhabitants. Spielberg also uses water to his advantage, splashing it around the camera in the water to add to the chaos the editing already creates. In Psycho, the film uses a similar technique of long, quiet shots before moments of action, and then the editing speed drastically increases during the action. An example of this is the famed bathroom scene in Psycho, where the shot length while the main character, Marion, is showering is fairly long. As soon as the murder starts, the shot length becomes much shorter and fast-paced. This scene creates chaos and terror as the audience watches the sequence. While Jaws uses jump scares in the film, one of the more frequently used techniques is dramatic irony. Shots from the point of view of the shark are combined with above-water shots of the unsuspecting massive swimmers. We know that someone is about to die, however, the characters in the film have no idea. The shower scene in Psycho also uses this technique. We see the shadow of the killer before Marion. The film uses music, foreshadowing, and point-of-view shots to build tension. The point of view shots along with the music creates a sense of dramatic irony because the audience knows where the shark is and that it is present, but can do nothing about it to help the characters in the movie. Opposingly, Psycho uses jump scares where the audience does not know when the murder is present or not, and uses this to scare the audience. The music in the two films is used for essentially the same purpose, to enhance the tension in its given film. Both Jaws and Psycho have iconic scores which define the thriller genre, but the two scores work in different ways to emphasize the tension in these movies. Both movies emphasize the killings and tie their themes to their killers. However, Psycho tends to use its music more as a jump scare tactic, accompanying instances where Norman emerges quickly or from off-screen. The Strings soundtrack works perfectly for this purpose. Its harsh, shrill sound works almost as a jump scare in itself. Jaws also uses its soundtrack to emphasize the killings and create tension. Since Spielberg had no shark animatronic for the majority of the movie, he uses point-of-view shots from the shark's perspective and above-water shots for the killings. Not showing the antagonist for the majority of the movie is effective. However, what makes it more effective is the use of the soundtrack to almost replace the shark for most of the movie. The primary difference between the use of music in Psycho and Jaws is that in Jaws, the music comes before a killing to ramp up tension and indicate the presence of the shark, whereas in Psycho, the music comes in during and after a killing, used to shock the viewer. In conclusion, to portray the message each film was trying to show, color, editing, speed, and music were utilized in their own distinct ways in each film to create tension and keep the viewer on the edge of their seats. Both films share several specific techniques due to both being horror/thriller movies, but they each have a unique take on the genre. Psycho being focused on the outcasts within society, and Jaws being focused on more unrealistic horror. Both were well recorded and influential thrillers of their time and changed the thriller genre as a whole.